I'm gonna get started. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. So hi everybody, my name is Chomanics. I am the Chief Operations Officer of a global environmental nonprofit called Ideas for Us. Like I was saying, every single day that I get to work with this global nonprofit, my job is in operations. So I get to plan projects from a small domestic scale to an international scale, creating programs and long-lasting installations in communities, whether that's landscaping, educational, or other types of projects. So we're going to get into a little bit about all of that. My intentions of this session is really to inspire you all that there's so much that we can do, and depending on what your interest is, there's a pretty easy way of getting it done and feeling good about it. And at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, this whole sector of environmentalism is really about just doing the most good that we can for the planet that also helps the people and the animals and the plants that call it home. So what's better than that? I haven't found it yet. So our session today is Ecoaction Organizing in Florida, how to lead eco events. Raise your hand if you've ever been the leader of an eco event, any sort of eco event. Okay, raise your hand if you're excited to and you want to and you have a goal to be a leader of an eco event. Okay, cool. Maybe, or maybe to join in on one that's already going on. So the mission of our nonprofit is to develop, fund, and scale solutions to solve the world's most pressing environmental challenges. And what that means is being able to create an idea, get it funded, and to be able to grow that idea and to make it a long-lasting benefit to communities far and wide. We have 3 different kinds of programs that we have here at Ideas, amongst many other projects that we're working on. But basically the idea is that we get people together in a community think and do tank called the Hive. Then we initiate funding through something called the Solutions Fund. It's a micro granting platform that funds projects in more than 30 countries with Ideas for Us. And then a solution comes out of it, like our program Fleet Farming, that I'm also the program director of. And we turn front and back lawns into farms, mainly by bicycle. And so that's an example of something that can come out of people coming together and creating a solution together. And then we focus on 5 different pillars of sustainability. And these focus areas we'll kind of dive into in this presentation because it allows us to kind of conceptualize a lot of different types of projects using these main categories. So we have energy, water, food, waste, and ecology. And I'm so excited to dive deep into this. I would like for you to kind of identify which one of these focus areas do you feel most passionate about? Is it animals or native landscapes, habitats? Is it our having clean, beautiful waters, which I think is really relevant to being here in Miami and here in Florida? We have a very aquatic landscape. And so it's something that I really, really care about. It's probably my top one for me. So this is water quality and water conservation. Waste, is zero waste something that you really care about? Do you want to get involved with sustainable fashion or ways to better our recycling or closing our loops of our systems? Food, that's how I got into it. I have a degree in horticulture, and I learned that I could help plants and animals in the environment by getting involved with my local food system. So is food something that you want to grow? Fruit orchards and permaculture to me are just really cool concepts. Or last is energy. As you were learning in session just before this, energy is something that we're all involved with, right? We're all benefiting off of this grid, but how can we promote more renewable energies, especially here in Florida, where even the top 3 energies are not renewable. So promoting solar and other technologies like energy through our drain systems that are pushing turbines or wave energy. And there's a lot of different things. So whatever your interest is, I would love for you to explore growing in that interest. So what are the needs within your community? My job, I'm mainly a grant writer, and I help to kind of conceptualize these projects and get them off the ground and get them going and get them, fundraised and et cetera. But the first step is addressing the need. What is needed? Some things that can help us with that is statistics. So you can just do some Googling on, what is the percentage of solar energy that Miami uses, or start to talk to different people in your network at your school about what do you think we should be focusing on at the school. Do you want to see less food waste at the cafeteria? Do you want to see whatever it is? I grew up in a small town near Orlando, and I was kind of brought into this because I saw a forest that I knew and loved to get completely demolished, the whole thing, every single tree. They didn't keep anything. And I later found out that this was the botanical garden genome of this famous horticulturalist called Dr. Henry Nearly. And so not only did we lose a forest, but we lost specimens dating back hundreds of years. And I felt so devastated by this and called to do something about it. And so now I translate that into doing more projects related to native landscaping, planting trees, creating habitat in places that I don't want to see lost, right? Grass helps with filtrating water into our aquifer. It does have a function, but it doesn't always have the best function. I think creating habitat is one of the most important things that we can do. But what are the needs of your community? This may look different for where you are. The need behind environmental projects. So climate change is a concept that's usually used in terms of addressing need, right? We talk about how our planet is warming and how we need to be getting involved with things like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If you guys have ever heard of that, it's called SDGs. It's basically indicators that help us to identify the needs of community, like no poverty, like gender equality, like life below water and life above land. These help us to address the needs of a community as well. So what are the challenges in Florida? And if you see something that's not on this list, I would love for you to raise your hand and to share. But just some of the things. So a lot of people talk about Florida in the terms that Florida is one of the most affected states by climate change in the United States of America, and Miami being one of them. We were in a National Geographic documentary that's now on Disney Plus called Paris to Pittsburgh. And our founder and president, Chris Castro, went to Miami in this documentary, and he showed his hometown being flooded and, all the effects that are happening because of these storms. And so that's definitely one big thing is extreme weather events. Water quality conservation. I think that many people talk about as well that some of the wars that we're probably going to get into is going to be about availability of water. And, there's only so much that we can pump into our aquifer and not have it penetrate back down through natural environments. When you have concrete and you have like traditional ways of catching water, it pushes water outside of where it normally would just fall through the ground and collect in that gorgeous underwater ancient river that's the aquifer. And the aquifer opens up into the Florida Springs. And if you've never been into Florida Springs, it is magical. And I would definitely, that's homework for everybody. Check out Florida Springs and spend the whole day. It's really beautiful. But having our water be clean as well from agricultural waste, that's something that we talk about a lot, is having, the fertilizers from Big Sugar, for instance, having a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus on a bag of fertilizers, NPK. Nitrogen and phosphorus are like the big bad ones that pollute our waterways a lot through something called eutrophication. But I'm just going to go through all of these because I could talk a lot about extreme heat, which is very prevalent with farm workers, lack of local food systems, endangered species like our Florida panther. I think that generally caring about what we call charismatic megafauna, or like big, fluffy, cute animals, is something that could activate a lot of people into doing work for the environment. pollution, reliance on fossil fuel energy systems, urban sprawl, environmental justice infringements, and more. There's a lot of different things. So you don't have to be led by the bad, you can be led by the good, right? I love the springs. I love animals and just seeing that this ecology being, thriving, and that's why I act. But for some people, they want to act because they're really, they feel passionate about the needs through these challenges. So in Florida, I love this map. So this map shows the natural habitats of Florida and where, if there wasn't people and development, what kind of habitats would be there, like pine flatwoods and sand hills and, scrub, prairies, all of this. So you can kind of see where you would be on a map. But today we're going to focus on talking about wastewater, energy, ecology, and food eco-action projects that you can. So some of those things look like solar energy workshops, shoreline restoration projects, tree plantings, waste audits, which is actually really cool. I would love to see a school do a waste audit. There's ways that you can basically get dressed up in kind of like an outfit that is good to go into a dumpster, and you take everything out of the dumpster and you organize it, and you give the school or whoever you're doing the audit for information on what they're throwing away, what could be composted, what could be recycled, and even like what should never be bought. There's certain things that we don't ever need to buy that again. And if it's just one person not ordering that through this vendor and ordering it through another vendor, and there's thousands of pounds that are not going to the landfill, that is a success on a project like that. And then of course, creating more urban agriculture and edible gardens. So how do we plan these eco events? So first, we organize a team of change makers. Just like this awesome group that's leading this conference, I can see that everybody has a role, and everybody, is working together to make something beautiful, to make something really impactful. And that's exactly what these eco-action projects need, is a team. They need maybe a team leader, or maybe that's something where everybody's the leader and they just have their own, things that they're passionate about, like media or ecology, ordering the plants, etc. Identifying a need in the community, which we've addressed, identifying a solution, which I'm going to share all the solutions that I can think of that would be at different price points, and then delegating responsibilities and steps for solution implementation and carrying out the solution. So free, let's talk about free. There's a lot of things that we can do. For waste, you can do recycling and reducing waste workshops, which is just educational. I think a lot of it is educational and telling people like this really does matter. Or maybe they live in an apartment complex and you can have a workshop at that apartment complex and telling people, hey, I know that we don't do recycling here, but sign this petition so then we can get recycling, and or here's where you can recycle in the community, and giving out resources. Bulk shopping. So there's different opportunities where you can work with a bulk store and have like a big bulk shopping day. Composting education, plastic pollution, and responsible shopping guidelines. Waste, we have for waste, water waste and quality, reducing personal water waste at home. We all know those things like turning off the faucet and the shower, and there's things that we can do to make that a little bit easier. There's even like a shower timer where you can put the timer on and it helps you to remember to not use that much water. Properly disposing of hazardous materials. So a school or a community group can easily do this where they can say, okay, today is our e-waste recycling. There's tons of companies that want to buy e-waste, and they actually make sure that no information, they kind of like wipe them for you. And you can have everybody bring in their electronics, their batteries, and etc. that leach all those nasty toxic chemicals into our landfills. And that's a big way that you can make a lot of change collectively in a free event. Also for energy consumption, renewable energy 101. Energy is a hard one because it's really, at the grassroots level, there's not a lot that you can do for free besides education, but we'll get into some other things. Food, growing your own food, food waste problems, responsible shopping. So really with food, if you have seeds, you can do a little bit of guerrilla gardening, put it in like a little Parmesan shaker and have like a little seed shaker and just go to untouched, undisturbed areas in your community and just be like a little seed fairy. I saw that on social media, somebody who had a skateboard and they just had all the seeds and they're just putting it out there, and then, you know, all these different plants are growing where people don't usually mow. And then for ecology, just education about habitat destruction, understanding ecological balances, and not just supporting sustainable fisheries. So that's one that even I would love to learn about. So if somebody organized that, then we could, you know, make some action with our shopping and our lifestyle changes. So low budget, maybe $100 to $200. And honestly, it's really easy to get $100 to $200. When you know, tell a lot of people about that, you kind of just break that down. If I got a $1 donation from 100 friends and family, or from 50 friends and family, got $2, then you could, you know, do one of these really cool projects. So for waste, you could do a community cleanup. With that money, you could buy buckets and trash grabbers. These are really great. If you have a group called Keep City Beautiful, so like Keep Miami Beautiful, Keep Orlando Beautiful, they have all those tools for you, and that becomes a free event. You're just inviting people out, they bring everything for you, and then you can really do a lot of impact by, you know, taking a lot of trash out of the environment. And we use buckets instead of plastic bags because they're eco, right? We're not going to use plastic bags for our projects. Buckets are reusable. Also, different signage in public places about recycling, turning trash into public art. We had a wave that we made at one of our schools with plastic water bottles. We put a surfboard beneath it, and it was just a really cool installation to tell people, please don't buy plastic water bottles, right? But use reusable water bottles. You can even buy reusable water bottles with this money too, and disseminate it to the school. So waterway cleanups, rain barrel irrigation. So one of the things that we did with this amount of a budget in Orlando is that we had a springs cleanup where we were actually given kayaks and canoes, and we went into Florida Springs and we used our trash grabbers and we cleaned things up. That's actually the second time I saw this guy right here. And it's a really great way to hang out with people. You know, maybe the way that our society is going to be going forward is that when we want to get to know our friends and hang out, we're doing something cool like cleaning up a Florida spring. That's a world I want to live in. Energy, covering windows. So there's a film, you'll see the film on this window, for instance, that does a lot to keep the energy in a building, right? So having those films be put on, even having the stuff around the window, it helps to insulate the building. One of the biggest ways that we waste energy is actually through AC, which is not so cool and exciting as like say humanities, right? But it is really a way that we can reduce our energy costs. And so next we have food. So purchasing from food reject stores and giving that out to the community, doing food drives that have food that is perfectly good that may be going to landfill. And then some other ones I'm just going to quickly go into is ecology, doing pollinator bombs, workshops, or creating seed mixes. I just bought a ton of native wildflower seeds in bulk and little envelopes. And I'm going to have a workshop where we're decorating the envelopes and we're filling it with our native wildflowers with this budget, way less than this budget actually. And we're going to be giving that out and giving that as gifts out in the community. So that's something that you could definitely do. Next, here's some more projects that we have. We're going to get into the next slide here. So how to plan waste cleanups. So these are really easy. Like I said, if you have a group like Keep Miami Beautiful or other groups like that, they'll provide everything for you. You can ask them what the biggest areas of need are because you might not know. So they can tell you where it would be best. And honestly, the biggest thing that we pick up from beaches is cigarette butts, thousands and thousands of cigarette butts. So even having like making some signage maybe and having that given to different beachside restaurants to say, please don't put your butts in the sand. That would be a really good campaign. That would be pretty easy to do. Collecting materials, you need gloves for sure, buckets, bags, trash grabbers. And so for volunteers, we really, and I'll talk about social media, but we post all of our events on Facebook. Facebook is a really easy way to share these events and to see how many people like RSVPing through liking it. We do post it on like Instagram, but Facebook is like the main way that we will like host an event and have it shareable, and you can share it on your school's page or your other group's pages. And people tend to really like these types of events and sign up pretty quick. How to plan food insecurity days. So you can work with an affordable housing and homeless shelter for a volunteering day. So it's really important in this environmental movement that we remember that people are involved with this, right? And if it can be a win-win where you're helping some place like a homeless shelter and you're doing something good for the environment together, that's a perfect project. And at Ideas for Us, we're constantly matching those things together. A community that's in need or an area that's in need with a project that would make it better for the environment and for the people. So definitely you can reach out to a homeless shelter or affordable housing unit and just ask them what their needs are. A free and easy Ecoaction project is volunteer or for other is to volunteer for other organizations' events as well. So for instance, Clio is a great group, Jen Clio. You can ask them, hey, we have a group that wants to do something fun. Do you guys have anything we can plug into? And then you can just join other events. We today are doing a oyster volcano or oyster dome installation where we are creating these artificial reefs that oysters are going to use as a substrate to hold on to and to create filtration, natural filtration of our waterways. So for instance, if you wanted to partner with a group like Ideas, you can say, hey, we really want to do an awesome project in the month of May. Do you have anything cool? And I would say, of course, we have a mangrove planting that we would love to have your group at. So come and join us. So you don't always have to do this from the ground up too. So having maybe a spreadsheet of all the different big groups in the area and jumping on board something that's awesome is a really good idea. And also on that, what I've done too is, maybe I may be new to an area and I see all these other nonprofits, they're getting together to do this amazing tree planting. I'll say, well, I'll supply zero waste refreshments for the event. And that's my way of contributing with a small budget. So that's an idea for you. So examples are homeless shelters, animal shelters, other areas of need. Oh, I gotta go back to it. Pollinator workshops. So pollinator bond workshops and pollinator planting days. So if you love the Florida environment, I would urge you to learn about the native plants that call it home. There's the Florida Native Plant Society, FNPS, that does a lot of work in all different communities about educating on what to plant and what not to plant. Really, there's something called floridawildflowers.org, I believe, and it is a really great resource for you determining where, determining if you have sand and if it's full sun and if you're in this area, what should I plant? And it has a program that tells you exactly what Florida native plants it would suggest. I really love blanket flower. I love Rudbeckia or black-eyed Susan. I love different types of native sages and dune sunflower. There's just so many different types of wildflowers that would benefit almost any environment, to be honest. And a lot of them grow in sand. They don't need a lot of attention in terms of like fertilizer. They don't need any of that because they're already acclimated to the Florida environment. So that would be a really great project, is connecting with a local nursery to talk about what plants that they have available and where you can plant together. Watering is really important for that. So you could even get like an irrigation timer hooked up to a hose with a sprinkler. And so nobody has to go out and water it because it's watering itself. We're thinking smarter, not harder, right? It's a good idea. Again, partnering with other groups on this is a really good idea. And I think that Pollinator Gardens or native landscaping flower gardens is one of the best things that we can do. That's pretty easy. Plants cost around, $5 to $10, unless you go from the seed route, then it's like 10 to 20 cents. And then, you go from there. I would definitely suggest to plant things that are bigger rather than smaller, just because the time that it takes. But yeah. Upcycling workshops. So one of the things that I really love is that we do these clothing swaps, and I'm constantly having like a bag of clothing at home that I'm just kind of like adding things into and bringing to these clothing swaps. it's really fun. Sustainable fashion to me is really one of the most interesting parts of waste projects to me. And so what you do is basically you just have a day, you tell everybody to bring all their clothes. This is the time that it starts, the time that it ends. Everybody brings their clothes out, they go shopping together. Maybe somebody has a sewing machine and they could teach you how to kind of just like gather and sew, so then it can tailor it to your body, which is really easy and fun. So that's something that is free that I would suggest doing. But there's some other ideas here. So finding projects to utilize waste and create useful items, t-shirts into tote bags and rags, plastic bottles into vases and containers, cartons into birdhouses, wine cricks into coasters, utilizing social media to help with that, and just having your fun, you know, like artsy friends kind of help you to think about different things. I've even went to one where we were making sustainable earrings out of clay and cork and shells. And that was a really fun thing that I would suggest for you to do. All you have to do is get like the hooks, of course. And also creating a fun environment with music, trivia questions at the beginning of it, environmental prompts, and for areas for people to communicate and to talk. So sometimes, you know, we go to an event and we're a little bit shy. I was shy basically my whole life until, you know, theater. And so having things where you're helping people to create those conversations helps it to be really fun. And having music as well just does that naturally. So I'll move on to the next one. Energy workshops. So finding an important topic that relates to issues in the community, such as renewable energy. A really fun one is electric cars. So you could talk about all the different electric cars that are there. And if you're a car person, diving into like how that works and what the big companies are and where it's headed. Energy alternatives and green buildings. Some of us really like the idea of a building like what we're in right now and getting to know like how is this building built, what's sustainable about it, what are some things that they're implementing to save energy and just, you know, to circulate the air and et cetera. So having those experts come out and to have a session on that is really fun and exciting, and it helps to promote more of these concepts, right? This is a movement. So it's a movement of action and of us doing things, but it's also a movement of thought. We need to rethink things. We need, you know, our parents and our grandparents and our community members to have conversations with us where we're kind of challenging and sometimes the way that we were previously thinking, right? And providing new information, new statistics, new thoughts on the world that we could be creating together, right? Our problems can become our solutions, such as with waste, with our food system, can be composted into soil that actually is better for our food to be grown in. And that's a good example of that. But so some high impact projects. So waste, community composting, like I just said, huge. This is huge. It really is, because a lot of the food waste that we have at home, a lot of the waste in general is because of things that could easily be composted. I really have a dedication to doing this. So some of the things that you can do is having a container in your freezer instead of having it be sinking on your counter, and collecting it until that container is filled in your freezer, and then putting it outside into a composter that kind of like, you know, you can have a crank on it or something that makes it really easy. Plastic alternatives in your community, having an impact of just figuring out what your school or what your community group can be buying from instead, like I mentioned earlier. Store and drain mesh. They call them water goats, which I just love that name, water goats. I love goats. But it basically is like buoys around these drains. And sometimes these drains go straight into a waterway and it just, everything just kind of disseminates into the water. But if you have this water goat, I don't know why it's called a water goat, but it's like a buoy. Certain communities set up a buoy and they have volunteers help to clean it out. And so that really helps to reduce the amount of pollution that's going into our water bodies. Lawn care restrictions and promoting, you know, education on how people can take care of their lawns. Shoreline restoration projects, I'm going to get into a little bit. So there's just a lot of different things that I've kind of already covered some of these. Ecology is reforestation, planting trees, shoreline restoration, pollinator gardens. We're rethinking the way that we have golf courses, and maybe these golf courses that are being, you know, no longer in use can be now wildlife habitats, perhaps, maybe, but they've had years of fertilizer use, so that's a question. So we're going to go into the next one. So some examples of some completed projects. We did a solar installation for about 2,000 to 5,000. I know that sounds like a lot, but it really isn't in the terms of like, fundraising for nonprofits. But this allowed us to create a solar energy installation at a Pulse mural. So Pulse, unfortunately happened in Orlando. And so this was one of the ways that we helped to honor that, is to have lights lighting up this mural using solar energy. Water shoreline restoration. We're going to get into this, but this is about maybe 500 to 1,500. You can really, go up or down with this. Sometimes shoreline plants can be really, really inexpensive, depending on where you buy them from. But basically, you just get Florida native plants and you plant them along water bodies. We're going to talk more about that. Community food gardens. If you wanted to build raised beds, 2,000 to 5,000. Local composting projects and native tree plantings. These are kind of the budgets that we've worked with, but you can scale these up or down. So how to lead a tree planting. Basically, find a location. I'd find a partner, 100%. Find a partner. See if someone else is already doing this and that you could help them, and just say, hey, we would like to purchase 20 more trees for you. What would that price be? And we'll help to fundraise for that. Or you can just come with volunteers and say, we just want to get involved with it. If you wanted to go on your own, you could basically find a private property, find a local nursery, create a sign-up form online, probably through Facebook events or Eventbrite, and set up for the event and carry out. You can have a delivery fee, etc. There's more steps to this, but I'm kind of summarizing it. How to plan a shoreline restoration. So raise your hand if you've been in a neighborhood where you see it's just grass and then water. There's nothing in between. Raise your hand if you've ever seen that before. Yeah, so I've seen that too. And it actually makes me pretty upset because it just doesn't allow any habitat. There's nowhere for these animals to hide and to live and to have nests. And also, and in terms of water quality, there's no way to filter anything that comes from the stormwater or anything that comes down that water hill into the waterway. There's nothing to clean it. And so what we do is we install native plants like these right here, buttonweed, pickerelweed, lizard tail, softbrush, etc. And we plant them along the shorelines. And this provides a buffer and it provides habitat. And there's already water in that soil, so it's easy to maintain them too. And so I would really work with a local group for this because there may be some permitting involved. But basically, you find a group that's doing something like this, or you tell them this is what we want to do. Can you help us find a location? Or you have a location in your neighborhood. If it's a private property, then you can look into local nurseries and to get this going. And I have more information on this and the exact plants. So if you want more after this session, you can definitely let me know and I will give you that information. I'm just checking my time. Okay, cool. And there's more steps involved if you wanted to take this from 0 to 60. So how to plan food cycling systems. So we have two here that are outlined. We have compost and we have food repurposing. So raise your hand if you've ever composted here or if you want to compost. Awesome. So composting definitely is, like I said, one of the bigger things that we can do. We can work with community entities such as schools, community centers, malls that would be interested in reducing their carbon footprint. Basically, we can find a local composting program. We have one in Orlando called O-Town Compost, but you might have one near you already set up. They typically really like to work with schools. And so sometimes it's just matchmaking and having your school's sustainability leader working with these outside entities. Providing free education and informational graphics. That's something that we all could do. Maybe by using Canva, maybe by making your own art and just placing them in places. Around our school, we listed the word landfill on all of the trash cans to make people realize that you're not just sending it away, it's going to a landfill if that's the best place. Because sometimes we know that it gets into our waterways and it gets into our trash islands that are in our oceans. And you can even have more information on recycling making sure to have some sort of like recycling set up near a sink where people can like kind of wash food off of items, which is one of the reasons why 30% of the things that we recycle is no longer recycled. Yeah, having more educational, things on that. Food repurposing. So finding a food service that is willing to donate good food at closing once a week. Finding a shelter that will accept food donations, and working with a team of volunteers to coordinate with weekly pickups. So a place like Panera Bread, for instance, has different communities that it will donate the food to. So if you could just be a matchmaker in that, that helps to reduce food waste and it helps somebody in need. So that's waste. How to plant a community garden. So as you know, I love community gardens. I love growing food, and you can find a group to work with, or you can go rogue and create your own garden. And there's so many different ways of doing that. You can have a traditional raised bed garden. Wood is very expensive right now. So what you could also do is get maybe logs that are on the side of the road from trees that are cut down and place those into this shape of a square or a circle or whatever you want your garden to be. Fill that with soil. The county and different municipalities, and there's larger soil drops that can happen rather than you going to Lowe's and buying the bags of soil. It can get really expensive if you do that. So finding somebody who will give you that much soil, and of course reaching out to local farms or local groups saying, hey, where did you get your soil from, is probably the best bet. And then filling that with soil, and then finding seeds that are for your exact area, and making sure that you're planting the seeds in the right season. So a resource that I really love for gardening in general is IFAS, IFAS. And they have something that is, it's a calendar for every month of the year, and it shows what to plant during that month, whether you live in North, Central, or South Florida. Easy, super easy. I even use that. I know when to seed my watermelon. I know when to stop growing my peppers, etc. It's already thought out. And then from there, I just honestly Google sometimes. I say best peppers to grow in South Florida, and it will tell me which ones I should buy online. I buy those peppers and I plant it when the guide says to plant it. Watering, I think, is the biggest challenge with these community gardens. So like I said earlier, getting a timer, having that timer hooked up to an irrigation hose, and then having that hooked up to some sort of sprinkler is the easiest way that your garden can be watered without you having to go out there every single day and watering at the best times of the day, which are usually 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And I water anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, depending on the size of the garden. So those are some things that I think that could help you. But the easiest way to have a community garden is to have a fruit orchard, to have fruit trees, because all you really have to do is dig the hole as 3 times as big as the root ball, and then have the plant be put into that hole, fill it with the native soil, maybe fill out some compost on top of it in the shape of a donut. Sometimes I make that donut into a heart because it's cute. And then you can put mulch all around that. The mulch helps to keep everything, all the water in there, to keep the soil from eroding on itself. And it also helps to reduce the amount of weeds that you're going to be weeding from the garden. And weeds are just a term for plants that we don't know the name of, right? It's a derogatory term for pioneer species, which is a better word. And so this is a really great way that you could have a garden. It kind of sounds easy when you do that. And with fruit trees, for like the first week, some people say the first month, you just have to make sure to water it in good. You can have something called a water bag that you could fill up once a week, and that water just kind of slowly drips into the ground, or you could have someone hand water it. But I don't know about you, I love seeing a tree full of fruit, and I really don't have to do that much. And I think that for some people, that if we don't want to garden, because gardening is a verb, we don't want to garden that often, fruit trees might be an easier way for us to get the same thing done, right? Especially when it's mangoes and avocados, and it's just like, oh my gosh, hundreds of fruits. That to me is really cool. And a solar energy install. I might just skip this one because it is pretty hard. It's pretty hard, but if you're determined and if you really want to do a solar energy installation project, then I totally challenge you to do that, to learn about batteries and inverters and panels and wires. I don't know what else, whatever else is involved, and to be able to put that into, use that to charge your laptop, to charge your phone. That's really cool. Something that my dad did when I was young was he had a stationary bike, and he hooked up the stationary bike to a cell phone charger, and we got to charge our phones off of that. That's really cool. That may be the one that I would suggest. I've also seen somebody do that with a blender. They hooked up a stationary bike to a blender, and the blender, you know, made them smoothies. Cool, pretty cool stuff. Running these low-cost environmental project events. So just to reiterate again, so choosing a project, finding a location, finding a partner or group to work with, because you don't have to start from zero. Ensuring all of the logistics are planned with your team. You guys talk everything out. You can talk about your worst case scenario, best case scenario, et cetera, to make sure that you're thinking about it in the right way. Being very positive too. If somebody in your group is just being negative Nancy about everything, you know, maybe it's time to change that paradigm. Advertising the event at least once a month or before, executing the event and recording metrics. So metrics is a word that we are familiar with in nonprofit world, but other people might not be. Metrics, which basically says, tell me what you did. How many plants did you plant? How many people were volunteering? How much time did they give? If you really want to wow people, you can say, how many minutes did we collectively spend doing this project? You can also say, you know, like, how much carbon did you sequester? And that's actually an equation that I found. It was really hard to find online, but I found it. So you can reach out to me if you want to learn about how you can show how much carbon you're sequestering from composting or installing trees, et cetera. And other metrics are like dependent on the project that you're working in. Plants installed, things like that. Food harvested, food donated, yeah. And photos. Photos are really important. We know this, right? We know this. And now with TikTok, I almost just did a TikTok dance, but I didn't want to see that. But with TikTok, we know we got to take video. We got to take video of everything, because it's weird, because if people don't feel like they were there in a sense, if picture is falling flat, people stop caring as much, right? And so that's what we're seeing the video, is that they could see it and they could feel the energy of it. And that's really attractive for people to want to donate more to projects like this, get involved with projects like this, see how cool it is and fun. So having vertical video for your TikToks that you can turn into reels, and having, you know, pictures either way is really great. Before, during, and after, preferably. And the same thing, but kind of different for running a high impact environmental event. If you need to be involved with like sourcing materials and stuff, it can get a little bit complicated. I would love to help anybody who's looking to do a project like this. So if you want to email me at contact@ideasforus.org, then I can definitely walk you through how to lead a high impact event. And then communications, like I said, Facebook is the best way to share these types of things. Eventbrite is also really great. There's something called Meetup, but it's a little bit more complicated if you ask me, because you have to pay over a certain number of members, et cetera. So Eventbrite is a good way if you wanted to kind of take it to the next level. Emails are great too, having an email list and just keeping them updated on the project and what you need. And I think that, you know, I kind of believe in some of the things of manifestation. Like if you speak it and you put it out there into the world, it's bound to come back to you, right? So if you say like, I'm going to do this project, I need this, and you're communicating those needs out, someone's going to pick up on one of those needs and say, oh, actually, I have all those and you can have that for free. And sometimes it's just believing in ourselves and, you know, just putting it out there. And so the last thing is, event reminders. You know, the day before an event, I will usually send out an email or something to say, hey guys, remember to wear closed-toed shoes and bring your gloves and reusable water bottle. We'll see you there. Parking is right over here. Thanks for coming. So that's a little bit about communications. Recruiting and managing volunteers. This kind of goes with your social network in general and your groups. I don't think this is the hard part. I honestly think this is the easy part, especially if you have Facebook. You have so many different friends, your parents and your friends have friends, and they can just share the event. And if it has a really cool image, then you're probably going to get a lot of people interested in it. And if you're clear on what you're going to do. Ongoing maintenance and project management. So some of these things, like these shoreline restoration projects, we'll just go back and make sure that we kind of like weed things. I hate that word, but like removing the pioneer species out of these different projects, or we make sure to water things in. We can identify somebody, like if we do a project at someone's house or near them, we could say, hey, do you mind going and checking on the project? So there's different things to make sure that they're successful projects, right? And to making sure mostly that the plants are watered and that everything is going well. And then just resources and thoughts that I've already shared. So I'm going to go into Q&A. If anybody has any questions from anything that I shared, or any experience that you had leading events, or I would love to know what you would like to lead. Whether it was something that I talked about that you think it sounds cool, or an idea that you have. If you want to share that, you can feel free to do that.
So you must have like seen a lot of projects in environmental activism. Have you heard of any projects that use like computer science mostly to do like a lot of change?
I have through him. So Parker in the room, he is involved with crypto, and there's, I don't know the lingo, but there's blockchains that can help to plant trees, something like that. I think that's the most that I've seen in that realm, unless Clay in the back, you have any ideas?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. I'm David Ferraro, the executive director of Ideas for Us, Caroline, and I work together. And there's a lot of things happening in the computer world, especially in looking at optimization in companies that do all different types of things across the world. One of the biggest problems is there's so much data out there that you could collect. But when you have a lot of data, not all of it is equally useful. So figuring out how to collect lots of data and then run different kinds of analyses on that data can help make a climate plan for a whole company or a school district or a company. So one of the most important things you can do in sustainability is learn how to handle data, and learn how to prioritize it, sort it in new and intuitive ways. And every company needs that. Every government, school district, all of those things. That's the cool thing about the Sustainable Development Goals, is that it provides metrics and data points. So if you know about the SDGs, definitely check that out. There's a whole cluster of people that work on computer-related things with those.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Good question.
AIG systems, there's a whole database that's free public data that has amazing stuff on all these nonprofits that they collect. It's map based, so you can kind of get layers and find a need that just your data. It's really interesting. It's free to use. So
I was thinking about doing a Twitter bot which like displays like important data for climate activism or certain areas that there's like a significant change in something. Oh, this is a big deal, something like that.
yeah,
So
that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so with the Twitter bot, great question. What's really cool is that you can find different kinds of climate data sets that are posted every single day. One of the cool things is that a lot of this climate data from observatories on the top of mountains and things like that to try to get really clear atmosphere that's not tainted by pollution and stuff like that. There's one in Hawaii, there's one in Chile, there's one in South Africa. They have all of their data public and they post it every single day. So if you can code a Twitter bot to post that, you could post that stuff automatically with every single day the dissolved carbon in the atmosphere or temperature data, but then you can cross-post it and tag people in it. So say there's a presidential election coming up, and someone's not talking about climate as much. You could program your robot to post that every day and tag them in it. Right? So every single day it's automatic.
Smart.
And
Yeah.
shooting Twitter data, right? And then you can get thousands of people to start doing the same thing. So every single morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, thousands of Twitter robots,
Oh my gosh.
with the Twitter bot, right? There's different kinds of educational stuff you can think about that.
So Twitter bots helping to tag government officials in environmental news every single day, thousands. That's pretty impactful to me. Awesome. Any other thoughts or questions? Or even from online people? Yes?
If someone has a question or wants to work more with you or learn more, how can they get a hold of you?
So this is my contact information. You can contact me. I'd love to talk to you about anything. I have a lot of thoughts and experience on leading a bunch of different projects, and usually too, different partners that are always looking for more. So yeah, reach out to me and I'd love to help you, and let's make this world a better place together. So thank you guys so much.
The industry, no, right? Do we end the stream or you keep it?